Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. In today's episode of the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show, we have Brian S. Friedlander. Brian has a background in school psychology and education with a career dedicated to training educators on the use of educational technologies. He has trained thousands of teachers on using assistive technology and mind mapping software to enhance classroom learning. Now teaching full-time in higher education, Brian recognized the growing need for faculty to utilize mind mapping tools to manage the demands of teaching, research, and administration efficiently. Leveraging his expertise, Brian collaborates with computer and software companies to assist in launching new products in the USA and supports educational technology companies in product development and marketing. Hi, Brian. Good morning. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thanks so much for taking time out for this.
It's great to be here, Jag.
My pleasure, Brian. Brian, I was going through the internet to get some information about you. I've got a lot of information, but I'm still going to ask you some questions so that our listeners are filled upon.
So I started out my career as a traditional school psychologist. I have a PhD in psychology and work with kids with disabilities. And early on in my career, my supervisor, who knew I was even back then, going back almost 40 years, knew I was interested in technology. And so he asked me if I was interested in going to a conference, which at that time was sponsored by Apple Computer. And there was a couple, Bud and Dolores Hagen, who were showing, adaptive keyboards and some adaptive technology. And it was like one of those moments when I realized that if I was going to be working with students who had special needs and challenges around learning, that technology was going to be that bridge that would level the playing field. And it just really excited me what I saw back then. And now by comparison, it's pretty unbelievable what has happened over the last 40 years. So I worked in the schools for the pretty much first half of my career, worked with including students with a wide range of learning challenges, disabilities, students with cerebral palsy, students with dyslexia, students with cognitive and developmental disabilities. And then about 18 years into doing very traditional school psychology, I decided to take some time off and began to develop my assistive technology practice. And so I've been probably for the last 30 years been providing assistive technology consulting and training. And then the interim was also a professor of education at St. Elizabeth University, where I oversaw graduate programs in special education and taught both undergrad and graduate students courses in special education and assistive technology. So I've been actively involved in the field, doing presentations, writing articles, creating YouTube videos, and working with a lot of educators for the most part, mostly in New Jersey, but I have presented nationally at some of the larger national conferences. And there's never been a better time to be in this field because the technology has improved dramatically, especially with the developments in AI. It's pretty incredible what you can do today, and some of the tools I'm using, I would never have believed 40 years ago that we'd be able to do some of the things that we can do.
Got it, Brian. Brian, I'm just going to go back a little bit to the times when we were working,
Sure.
especially the working kids with special conditions. You named a variety of them. So, was your view of them by using technology, or were you also, a trained psychological person, where you would talk to them, coach them, or stuff like that?
Yeah. So the first part of my career was pretty traditional. I was doing psychological testing. I was doing counseling. I was working with teachers, working on behavioral plans for students with challenging behaviors, and I was also in private practice. But my passion and love for the technology, I guess, overcame me, and I decided that that's what I really wanted to focus in on. And being truthful, there are not a lot of people in New Jersey who were doing this kind of work, and so I found a real niche, and have been providing a lot of the public schools with my services to help them help students in making decisions regarding selection of the technology, implementation, and training.
Got it, Brian. Brian, before I start to talk a bit more about technology, I just want to ask you one question about the psychology. Of late, we've been talking a lot about testing and attention problems with students like ADHD, a lot of things. And at least to me, probably because of the internet, I'm aware of
Right.
a lot of these things. But you started a little bit earlier than the internet was this much out there. So, was it the same even then? It's just that people went aware of it, or is the psychological problems more today?
I mean, I think since we're coming out of COVID, a lot of students are having challenges, or especially around anxiety, and I was always attracted to using technology because I mean I felt that it really in some sense it allowed students to be more independent. It reduced the frustration level for a lot of these students, and so in some sense it would help them throughout their day. I mean, I can't tell you how many students I work with who present with behavioral issues which are really kind of symptomatic of their underlying learning disabilities. And so if you can put the right tools in their hands, they gain more control and they feel less of a need to be out of control. And so I found that a lot of these tools also help. I would say the mental status of a lot of these students that I work with, as well. And I think because everyone is more technology based, a lot of the students enjoy using the technology. They find it that they're more efficient, less frustrated, and they can demonstrate their knowledge and what they're capable of doing. For many years, students with disabilities, have had poor self concepts or felt that they couldn't do. And I think these technologies really enhance the students' knowledge and their capabilities, and they can really show off their true potential, which was hard prior to using these
Got it,
technologies.
Brian. Brian, you said one of the key points for you was a critical keyboard, and that's when you kind of felt very passionate about technology and started. And talk about that of this, the keyboard that you spoke about, adaptive keyboard, and how it
Yes.
actually helped your students and the journey from there.
Yeah, I mean, so back in the day, we were using Apple computers, and we had serial. I don't know if anyone remembers the serial cables. They look like ribbons, and attached to the ribbons were actually dip switches. And so, depending upon what you were doing, you'd have to take the pen tip and move the dip switches, and then you'd plug it into the computer. And I used to call those days plug and pray, because a lot of times it didn't work, and it was frustrating. But the keyboards were very large, and back in the day, the computers were much more, I guess, simplistic. Sometimes they work, sometimes they didn't. But when I first started to work with students, assistive technology was seen as a technology that would be used for students who had significant motor disability. So a lot of the students I work with had cerebral palsy because they couldn't access either a standard computer, so we'd give them an adaptive computer, and then we'd also use various switches to basically put like an on-screen keyboard on the computer, and then with the switch, they could then control the keyboard. And even back then, it was a difficult, arduous task, and it was oftentimes difficult. But that's what we, that's what we have. Now we have eye gaze technologies and different technologies that are much more elegant and work more effectively. But very very early on in my career, I worked with a lot of kids with cerebral palsy, trying to give them just access to the computer because the keyboard was a real obstruction to them using any kind of technology.
Got it, Brian. Brian, feeling passionate about the solution technology offered is one thing, but how did you, quickly adapt it in a way that you made it your business indicators and technology?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, before the internet, it was kind of interesting because, what would happen is, you had to sort of find out where these conferences were. And so early on in my career, I wound up finding out that, what's it called? University of Connecticut every summer had like I think like may have called it adaptive technology, assistive technology conference. And I early on I went to one and met some people, and then through that networking, one of my friends, Richard Wanderman, he's since deceased. He was sort of my mentor. I met him at these conferences, and then every summer you'd meet the same people, at the conference, and they became your social network. Richard was a real leader in the field, and again, prior to the internet, he had a printed newsletter that he would mail out to people throughout the United States, and so I learned a lot through that experience of actually getting a printed newsletter. But pretty much it was, you go to conferences and you meet the same group of people. And a matter of fact, when I go to conferences, it's still the same group of people, except we're a lot older now. Uh, but that's the way it was. It was like, oh, you go to this conference and it's the same familiar faces. Um, and so pretty much a lot of it was self-taught. A lot of it was talking to other colleagues that were doing interesting things in the field. Back then, there really were no courses. I tried to read as much as I could. I joined organizations, went to conferences, presented, and just we learned from each other and our experiences. One of the major conferences was called Closing the Gap, which is in Minneapolis. And early on in my career, I attended that conference, presented at that conference many times. It's still going on today, still an excellent conference. And so by going to those conferences, really learned a lot. And then, like anything else, as the tools became more available, I would gain access to them because of my contacts, and I would, basically teach myself and learn as much as I can about it. And it's still pretty much the same. Yes, there's tremendous amount of new information about new tools, but I try to keep on top of it, try to gain access, and through my networks so that I can utilize and have access to the latest technologies. And then I have to spend the time and kind of learn the features and see how it applies to some of the students that I'm working with.
Got it, Brian. Brian, when you talk about technology, there are two things that come to my mind. One is technology that's useful generally for everybody, and then there is this assistive technology which is used for people with special needs, especially in education. Um, just specific to the assistive technology space, right? When you first started looking at the adaptive keyboard, the plug and play thing that you told, how has that assistive technology evolved now? I mean, is it like spectacularly advanced right now, or how's it like? Because I mean, I know about the general usage like ChatGPT, but the assistive technology I have no idea about.
Right, right. I mean, it has changed dramatically. I mean, certainly the equipment is much better. It works more efficiently. But What's been exciting is that all the major players, whether it be Apple, Microsoft, Google, they've incorporated a lot of assistive technology supports right into the operating system. Whereas in 30 years ago, you'd have to find applications that actually did it. So, yeah, I mean, speech recognition, as we call it today, or voice typing is now built into all the operating systems, whereas you had to go out and buy a $200 or $300 program like Dragon Naturally Speaking that only worked on Windows and needed a tremendous amount of training. So like when I was working with Dragon Naturally Speaking, the student would have to actually read paragraphs like for like sometimes over an hour before it developed the profile. Now, you open up, a Chromebook, you go to Google Docs and you start speaking and no training is needed. So, I mean, that's the impact of, artificial intelligence and algorithms working. So, and then even text to speech, it's built into every operating system so that a student can go on the web, highlight some text, hit the play button, and it will read it aloud. Again, years ago, you'd have to buy a program that would do that specifically, so it's great to see a lot of these technologies being built into whether the apps or even operating systems. I mean, even, Microsoft has spent a tremendous amount of, money, time, and effort with their immersive reader environment. And so they have text to speech in pretty much every application. And even now in Copilot, you can use Copilot just like you use ChatGPT, but you could enter your prompts with your voice, and it has then when you get your output, there's text to speech even in Copilot. So tremendous advances have been made, and even in Microsoft Edge, you now have really high fidelity text to speech built in, and where you don't need any plugins or anything, which is really an elegant, an elegant solution.
Got it, Brian. And Brian, when it comes to people with special needs, do all the software that you just mentioned, does it do the job, or do you need some extra hardware along with it?
Generally not hardware, unless I don't do it as much, as when I originally started. But if you're working with individuals with significant motor disabilities, then if you're looking at eye gaze technology, that requires additional hardware. Either it's an addition to, let's say, a Windows computer, or it may be a dedicated computer that has some of that technology hardware built in. Um, but I would say that, that there are specialized pieces of software that I use specifically, especially for kids with dyslexia or writing disabilities. Oftentimes, I use word like specific word prediction applications or writing applications that have like word banks. So there are some specialized tools that I use with students depending upon their needs that is not built into the operating system.
Got it, Brian. Brian, you started off working with educators, training them how to use the assistive technology. Are you doing that? Do you work with both
Yes.
the educators as well as the service providers?
Yeah, I mean, so most of my career, I worked in the schools as a school psychologist, and when I left, I headed up a master's program in special ed and assistive technology. So I've worked with literally thousands of teachers, training them on many of these technologies, which has been really rewarding. This would be my last semester teaching at the university, but I continue to work with schools and train the teachers in terms of how to implement these technologies that students are using in their classrooms, which is still really exciting. And I have to say that's always been the weakest link, is the implementation and training. I mean, the schools have gotten a lot better at purchasing the hardware, software, but I would say the weakest link is the training and implementation, because it's not a one-shot deal. You can't make a recommendation for a particular piece of software, go in and work with the teacher, and show them how to use it. Because what happens over time, the student skills change, the tasks change, and so you have to always constantly reevaluate how you're going to be using the software. And like anything else, all of us probably use Microsoft Word. It's got 1,000 features, but the feature is only important when you need that feature, or at least to know that you can use that feature. And the same thing with a lot of the software. It's got a lot of bells and whistles, and probably for 90% of the time the student doesn't need the bells and whistles, but maybe they have a new project coming up where that feature is going to be important, and so you want to be able to show the teacher, hey, did you think about using topic dictionaries, or whatever the case may, whatever that special feature is. So working with them on a consistent basis is always the best approach. But sometimes due to budgetary reasons, they don't, the schools may not have me come in on a more regular basis. But I found with regular consultation and training that it's the most effective strategy for a new tool to actually be implemented, and implemented correctly.
Got it, Brian. And I'm assuming that the schools that you spoke about, that you offer training for, it's got nothing to do with special needs. It's normal schools we're talking about.
Yeah, most of these are regular, they're public schools, and they have students with reading or writing disabilities, and they will call me in. I mean, I do work with, in New Jersey, we do have, I would say, private special ed schools with students that may have maybe more significant needs, and so I work with them as well.
Got it. And what are the tools are we talking about, Brian? The tools that you train them on, the educators?
So a lot of the times, with the very quick adoption of Chromebooks, at least in New Jersey, and it's probably true across the United States, a lot of schools have adopted the Google environment. So students are using Google Docs, Google Slides, and of course Google Classroom. And so one of the tools is, but from a company called Text Help, is called Read and Write, for Google Docs, Google Chrome. And so it's basically a toolbar that has a tremendous number of supports that are built in. So when students are writing, for example, they can use the voice typing. They also have word prediction built in. They have text to speech. They also have some study skill tools. They have tools for reading the web, tools for simplifying websites that may be distracting for students that have attentional disabilities. So I've done a lot of training on the Read and Write for Google Docs toolbar, which is, again, it installs right in the Google environment. So it's available to the student, whether they're using slides or sheets or even Classroom. So it's always available to them. And again, that's the kind of tool where years ago, I may have had to recommend five or six separate applications. And now they open up this toolbar, and they can pretty much have a real, I'll call it like a toolkit that they can access whatever they're doing, whether they're doing word processing or doing work on the web. And so that's one tool. I also do training on more advanced word prediction tools for students with writing disabilities who spell very phonetically. And a lot of these tools offer the capability of custom or topic dictionaries. So if you're writing on a particular topic, you could load a specialized set of words that when the students start to write about it, they come right to the top of the list. Also tools that, for students, I work with a lot of students that have dysgraphia, which means it's challenging for them sometimes to express their ideas, but also generally their handwriting is very poor. So there are these kind of specialized math applications where we can put problem sets on the computer, and they can respond on the computer as if they had, they were doing pencil and paper tasks, but this way they can show their work. So there's some tools on the iPad and also on the computer that allows, again, teachers to load problem sets, and then students can solve the math problems, and everything lines up, and they can turn it in through Google Classroom, which is really great.
Got it, Brian. Wow. Brian, coming to adapting new technologies, it's not always, and often that people look forward to it, especially in schools. Maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. So when you are entering a school, how's the reception usually like? Is it like, excited? Are teachers excited and students bored? Or how's it? I mean, do you have to lift up the spirits, and how's it? Is it fun or not?
I mean, fortunate for me, I've been doing this a while, so I tend to work with the same school system, so I'm a known entity, and they respect my knowledge and my expertise, so I'm very welcomed in those environments, and so it works out. It works out well for me. I mean, I can't say that there haven't been times when, sometimes I'm walking into challenging situations because there might be some litigious cases where the parents may have an ongoing, I'll say, lawsuit against the school, and the school's calling me in to to see how I can help so that the student can gain access to the curriculum. But I would say 98% of the time, I'm very welcomed into the schools. And like I said, I've trained a lot of teachers, and oftentimes I'm sitting in meetings, and the
Right.
classroom teacher is a student that I trained. So I have a good relationship with the schools and the teaching staff, which is always fun. Yeah.
Got it, Brian. Brian, since you're the person who takes the products to the end user, what's your relationship
Yes.
or your role with the product makers? Do you kind of go back to them, offer the feedback? What's your role?
That's a good question. I think throughout the years, and again, for any entrepreneur, kind of establishing your professional network is really important, and so I always made it. It was always important for me when I went to conferences that I would reach out to certain companies and kind of introduce myself and develop a relationship, because it's really important in that they're able to provide me with the latest products, and keep me in the loop so that I can provide my clients with the best products that are out there. And so when I attend conferences, I always meet with the companies, and they provide me with information, but I also provide them with real life feedback in terms of how their products are actually doing when they're put into a classroom. And so it's really a really kind of a continuous feedback loop. They provide me with products, I use it with students, I get feedback, and then I feed that back to them so they can make changes in their products. So I would say definitely, my network is really important, and it has really served me well over the years because I gain access to the latest, tools and software, so that I can provide my clients with the best products and services in the marketplace.
Got it, Brian. Brian, to me, you're in a unique position, in that you have access, you know exactly what the customers want, and you have a direct contacts with the people who are going to be using the products. And probably you must have gained a little bit of expertise or experience as to how things work on the product development side. Has there ever been a situation, where you yourself thought, hey, should I be developing a product
Yes.
myself?
I've, I've thought about it, but the costs are challenging. What I've been doing recently, though, which has been exciting, another sort of part of my company expanding, is I've been working with some international companies that are bringing new products into North America. And so that's been exciting part. And again, I'm working with an Israeli company called ScanMarker, and they've developed a new product that is basically like a highlighting pen that scans text and reads it aloud. I'll turn it on and I could kind of show you. And so what's been fun is, the product was just released about 4 months ago, and I was able to attend one of our national conferences, the Assistive Technology Industry Association conference in Orlando, the end of January, where we launched this product. But again, it's continuous improvement, continuous feedback. We launched the product, we put it in the hands of educators, and we've made some changes even in the short term. So it's been fun, for me to get my hands on it and be able to provide the company with, have you thought about doing this? So this is, yeah, so this is a reading pen, and you could just basically go over text. So a tool like this would be very helpful for a student to read paper paper based tests or worksheets. If they have a reading disability, it actually has Bluetooth, so students can listen to the text being read on their, using their either a Bluetooth headset or their Apple AirPods, whatever they want. So that's been fun. And I'm also working with a company in Wales called AOA, which is a mind mapping application that's used for students could be attentional disabilities, even reading disabilities. Kind of helps chunk information. And what's exciting about that product is that it incorporates AI, so that a student could put in a main topic and then it would generate some ideas for them. Or you can take some text and have it summarize the information also in kind of chunks with visual appeal. So it's really exciting to be working with these companies to give them feedback, but also trying to connect these applications, whether hardware, software, with special educators throughout the United States that are working with students very similar to mine. So being able to work with companies is really exciting to bring these technologies into North America.
Yeah, that scan marker that you showed. So does it also store
Yes.
everything that somebody highlights, or it only reads it out?
Yeah. Right. So it will store it, in the device, and so you can actually, it's got several settings, but you can store the like say the paragraph or the page in there that you're reading in, and then go back, and have access to it. You can also save the text and actually right now export the text by plugging it into any computer, and then exporting a TXT file so that students can use it, let's say, to highlight main ideas in a textbook, and then they can bring it into Google Docs, Microsoft Word, or whatever their word processor of choice. So it does give you options, and we've also have a lot of success. We're beginning to use that application because it has translational services. So I can scan in English, and then it will read back in one of over 100 different languages. So for students where English may not be their primary language, they can also use it, as a safety net, and listen to the text being read in their native language. So so it's a very exciting technology. It's very portable, and so schools are looking at this as as tools to put in the hands of students who need to access more paper-based materials.
Got it, Brian. I mean, it's an amazing stuff. Just one more question about that scan marker that you showed. Does it only help people highlight, actual paper-based text, or can you also, highlight stuff from a screen, like a laptop screen or an iPad screen?
Yeah, so good question. Yeah, so the optical sensor in there can also scan computer screens. And
Wow.
it's interesting. We were at this conference in January, and this educator from Croatia came to our booth and said, we don't have any technology like this in Croatia. And she said, can you scan in Croatian and, read it and, have it say it in English? And we said, yeah, we can do it. And so I said to her, do you have any, Croatian material? And she goes, no, but I have my cell phone. And so she went to a website with some news from Croatia, and I scanned it and it read it, and I wish I could have video. She was crying. She
Wow.
couldn't believe the power of this technology, and the fact that this could be a really incredible tool for students that she's working with. Like I said, I wish I had videotaped it. She was literally in tears. She couldn't believe it was able to read her native language, with this device.
Well, I was just thinking the same because India has people talking more than 50 languages across the country. And I mean, I'm not expecting
Yeah,
it to cover all the 50
yeah.
languages. Even the top 10 or top 5 would do a world of good for the people. And is it out there for the usual people to buy, or is it only in the US for now, Brian?
No, it's available actually on Amazon, if you're interested. The other thing too, we have, this is a standalone product, but we also, let's see, we also have another part of the portfolio, and it's made by the same company. So
Right.
this is called Scan Marker Reader. This one uses a web-based application, and you highlight the text, and over Bluetooth it sends it to your Android phone, iPhone, Chromebook, Mac, Windows computer. And then this one also we can gain access to. I think it's over 115 languages. So in the window you would see English on one side, and it could be whatever language you want on the right side as it splits the screen. So we have this solution for individuals that want to scan directly into a computer, and that the other one is for on the fly access to paper based tests, worksheets, things like that.
Wow. I just checked it out in the local Amazon store. It's available even in India. I'm going to talk about it to a lot of
Yeah.
people tomorrow or after the podcast for sure. It's really because
Yeah, let me know if you have an interest, or you think that there are schools that you're familiar with that are interested. Let me know. I'd be glad to reach out to
sure
you.
thing, Brian. Sure thing.
But the tools they're just gotten really, really amazing. So when we talk about like reading technologies, so this is another. This is called Orcam Read. This So this company first started releasing assistive technology products for the visually impaired. They still do. They have something called My Eyes, which would have this affixed to the frame of the glasses, and it would be that version would be able to recognize faces, colors, things of that sort. This one is intended for individuals who have a reading disability, and so you just basically take a picture of the page and it reads it straight away. So again, without any internet connectivity needed. But just to give you an idea, 25 years ago, I met Ray Kurzweil, who developed the Kurzweil reading machine, which back in the day was looked like the size of a copier. So you could put a book on the copier, and then it would scan it, and then it would do the optical character recognition, or the OCR. When I saw him 25 years ago, He had a Nokia phone and a Canon digital camera, literally duct taped together. He took the picture with the camera, and then at the time, the Nokia phone was probably one of the more powerful phones. The phone would process and do the OCR, and then now we're dealing with something the size of a chocolate bar. I mean, it's unbelievable. And this could also read computer screens or posters or pretty much. And again, no internet connectivity is needed. So these tools have come a long way, in terms of what they're able to do. So it's really interesting. And then probably over the last 5 years, what's happened, especially now with AI, is audio has become a really important part of the equation in terms of note taking. I work with a lot of high school students, a lot of college students who have tremendous difficulty with note taking. It's hard for them to attend, write, process, and so audio has become a much more important component to the note taking process. And so these are some tools that I've been kind of working with recently. This one's called Plod Note. It's like the size of actually, this is in a MagSafe case, so I could stick it to my iPhone. But it's the size. You can see how thin that is. It's the size of a credit card, and the interface. There's one big button. I press it. It can record the audio, and then it uses Chat GPT on your Android or iPhone to transcribe the entire session. It could also create a summary and a mind map with that information. I mean, and again, it weighs next to nothing, which is incredible. And then I've been playing around. This is a new device. It's from a company called iFlyTech Smart Recorder, and this can transcribe the audio on the fly with no internet connectivity. So I'll give it. Yeah, I'm going to give it a shot and see how it does. Let me turn it on. So this has it uses, of course, AI for noise canceling, and it's got an 8-core processor in here. So I mean, the horsepower in here is pretty incredible, and it could store, I think, up to 175 hours of audio. And then, of course, you can also export this. So it's just starting up. So let's see what it does. In a couple seconds, you can see the text on the screen. And you can then plug this into your computer at the end and then export this as a TXT file and bring it in. Let me see if I could download, see if. So it's again, it's pretty exciting technology from a small little package like this. And I do, for those of you that are interested in some of these tools, I do a lot of blogging on LinkedIn. You'll find a lot of posts, a lot of videos that I do. So if you're interested, you can find out more information about some of the tools. I'm also I use a lot of digital pen technology as well. This is a Neo Smart Pen, and so for me professionally, I will admit I am not. I don't do that well with paper, and so being able to use a digital pen, all my notes get sent to my iPhone. I can do searches. I can tag my notes. And I can also use audio as well. So when I work with students and doing evaluations, being able to record them when I'm doing my testing and assessment is invaluable, because when I come back and have to write my report, I can listen back to their response to comprehension questions or their reading fluency. So these tools they're important for the students I work with, but I've adopted a lot of them myself as part of my professional workflow.
Your job is exciting jobs that I've definitely come across in the recent past. It's just to
Yes.
listen to you describe some of the technology is so exciting. I'm sure you don't have plenty of
Oh,
time to share about
I
so many
have a lot of fun
right?
playing with these technologies. I
It's
guess
great.
even as a kid, I always like kind of tinkering and building things, and so I mean, this takes it to a whole nother level. But I mean, with AI being so robust and it being um, added to a lot of these technologies, it just changes the equation just tremendously, and what's possible and what will be possible. I mean, it's pretty incredible, pretty, like I said, very exciting. I mean, compared to when I started to now, it's pretty incredible. And I've been doing some webinars on assistive technology and AI, and looking at some of the applications, whether it's something like Grammarly AI to help students with grammar, or tools that we've been talking in special ed for many years about differentiation. So if you're in a classroom, let's say you're in a high school classroom and you're teaching about your science class and you're teaching about photosynthesis, you may have students that can understand photosynthesis at the college level, but you may have students that only can understand it at seventh grade level. And now with some of these websites, like there's a website called Diffit, DIFFIT, teachers can go in and, basically say, I want information about photosynthesis, but I want it at a seventh grade level, and it will create the text for them at a seventh grade level. Or you could say, I want the text at a college level. And then at that point, teachers can push out
Wow.
that text in Google Classroom or any learning management system and say, okay, I want these students to get it at the seventh grade level. I want these to get it at the high school level. I want these students to get it at the college level. So you can really begin to differentiate just with basically a website and a click of the mouse, and adding the right prompt. So it's pretty really exciting technology. And this is only the beginning. I mean, even in the last year, you've seen tremendous advances in AI. I mean, I've been using a program called Synesthesia to create informational videos about various assistive technologies, and I'm able to create scripts and have avatars
Right.
read the scripts for me, and it literally take me a half an hour to create, and they
That's
come out
remarkable.
really professional, and then I can utilize them with the parents, teachers, put them on YouTube, which is really exciting. And they use AI for creating the script, and for helping the avatars speak. I mean, if I don't have an enterprise license, but if I had an enterprise license, I can go into a studio and they would create an avatar of myself, speaking, and then I could use this in the video, So it is really, it's
Wow.
really exciting. Would I be able to show one of them if I share my screen? Okay, let me all
Yeah,
right,
of course.
let me just get it set up here.
You can share your screen.
Yeah, so I mean, I think again, not only can students benefit from these technologies, but certainly, we're all going to need a tremendous amount of professional development, and so some of these tools can go a long way. So this is using a program called Synesthesia, and in this one, I'm introducing that recorder that I showed you. And if I just hit the play button, so that just gives you an idea of what you can do to create professional learning material, which is needed in today's environment because there's so many changes and things
Right.
are happening so quickly. So I was able to I can create those videos pretty quickly with high fidelity, and put them on YouTube, and you know you know have educators, or anyone interested in learning a little bit more about the technology, which is, I think, is really exciting. And again, without AI, this would be impossible to do.
Yeah, AI is used to talk about another AI.
Exactly. Yeah. So the amount of AI that's being included in these products is going to increase tremendously over the next couple of years. And of course, a lot of these companies are building the AI into the chipsets themselves, so they're going to be able to do certain things that we can only have imagined this technology being able to do. Yeah. So it's, I mean, like any technology, it has, tremendous possibilities. There's also, we always have to be careful of the downside if the wrong people do the wrong things with these technologies. But I think that's always been the case. I don't know that. I don't think we should be any more alarmed than other tools that have come out in the past that people said they're going to ruin this, or we need to adapt. That's important. We need to adapt.
Yeah, I think the internet as a whole itself, if you consider it as a tool, I mean, it's there to be used the way you want. I mean, there is no control about how people want to use it. There's only so much one can do.
Right. But like everything else, there's always a dark side, right? I mean, always the dark side. But but you think about, I mean, you and I would never have connected 20 years ago. I mean, I've been working with international companies, having meetings, for folks in India, Israel, Wales. I mean, I could never have done that, years ago. I mean, so it really brings everyone closer together in many respects, and we can share our expertise, across long distances.
Right, Brian. Brian, I'll probably conclude the podcast with just one more question.
Sure.
Given that you have access, or rather early access to a lot of cool products that you showed, what is one thing you personally are waiting for to you?
Okay, you broke up a little bit, so finish the last part of that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I wanted to ask, what is one product that you are personally waiting for that excites you?
Oh, okay. All right. So I backed a Kickstarter product called Xnote. Let me see if I could.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I'm actually let me just share my screen real fast. Which I'm really excited. So this is going to bring together digital pen technology with ChatGPT. So you're going to continue to write your notes on a paper-based notebook with a digital pen, which is what you see there. So all your strokes get stored on the phone, and then when you swipe over, what it does is ChatGPT will transcribe it, and then you'll be able to add additional functionality based on using ChatGPT prompts.
Right. Wow.
So so I would say probably in the next probably by the end of the month, the product will be finished, and I'll have access. I've been in discussion with the CEO, so it looks like it's coming soon. They're still, I think, working a little bit on the software. So this is going to bring kind of the best parts of digital pen technology and add the layer of ChatGPT. So, for example, if you took some notes and you said, follow up in a week, ChatGPT will recognize that and will say, do you want me to set a reminder for you? Like, or it'll automate. Or if you're in a business meeting and you write some bullet points at the end, it will say, would you like me to add some tasks based on them? Pretty much what you see if you're using like Otter AI, or if you're using any of the software to record meetings. This will be able to, go in and analyze. So I'm pretty excited to see what this is going to be like.
Got it, Brian. That was great. Brian, it was a pleasure to learn
Likewise.
about some of the products. I think Scan Reader is one thing that I'm super excited about. I'm gonna check it out.
Check it out. Check it out. And if you need more information, let me know.
Sure, Brian.